Hello and welcome back to Big Bad Books, the podcast where we do the reading so you do the listening. That's the saying we always had. It's catchy now as it ever was. I'm Isaac.
You're allowed. You know that you're allowed to come up with the rhyme before the show,
We
and
do
then
the reading and you do the listening, and that's the way it goes. Big Bad Books, brought to you by me and you and your.
And me. I'm Declan. Hello.
How's it going?
Hello, everyone. I'm okay, thank you.
Books.
There's loads. I'm looking at some now.
Go on, name one.
Name one. It's called Blood Orange.
Oh, okay.
It's very bad.
Yeah, that's a fruit, mate. Bad luck.
Oh shit!
He's fucking lying. He doesn't even know a book.
I've got another one that's called Desk.
This is embarrassing. This is like a Lin-Manuel freestyle. No. He just points at objects in rhythm. Oh dear, terrible news. Well, look, welcome back to Big Bad Books, the podcast where we read them so you don't have to. I just remembered.
Is that I thought that you were doing a fun bit, but no, it was you just
I
forgot.
truly don't. It doesn't sit in my memory, that one, for some reason. That one, it just
it wouldn't
out the other.
I suppose I could have figured that out when you said we do the reading, because it doesn't really work.
We did the reading.
Yeah.
But I didn't know what they did. It turns out they don't do anything.
They don't do anything. Yeah. They just listen. They
fucking
do just
lazy,
listen. Yeah.
Passive.
Yeah.
I would encourage you, if you are listening, then maybe do something as well as listen. It would be weird. It's quite horrible to imagine, and I bet they did this in the terrible past when like the wireless was kind of new. Like you just sat there and
wireless
listened.
Internet.
No, the wireless radio. Where you remember FDR used to come on and tell you, he'd be like chatting about the war,
and that was like entertainment.
Yeah, it was kind of like pre-gunting. That's like prunting entertainment. Like before that was possible.
Could gunt.
FDR used to come on and read chapters of Ready Player One to a confused crowd of 1950s Americans
who'd never seen so much as one Star War.
Yeah. But imagine for a moment that someone's listening to a podcast and that's all they're doing. Like they just sat down and turned on a podcast and they just sort of sat there staring at nothing. I suppose
that's what I do sometimes, like on the train.
Well, yeah, but you're traveling. You're doing another big verb there. And
but I'm not doing very much myself. The train is doing most of the movement. I am just staring forwards.
Undersell yourself. I think you're doing a great. You've tapped in. You've found a seat. You've done all sorts there.
Thank you.
So yeah, while you're listening to the podcast, make sure you're doing something. You're giving back to society. Maybe you could do this while you're doing your community service.
Maybe you could be creating some better art.
Yeah, that would be really
not than good. This show. No,
that's not
Ready
possible.
Player 2.
Than Ready Player 2. Okay. Now we're going to do such a quick recap of Ready Player 2 because it occurred to me that one day people might listen to these in a row, and we do spend too long on the recaps. It's for our benefit predominantly because it's been 2 weeks, but we have to imagine that some listener knows what's going on.
It's been at best 2 weeks. It does. That was always my least favorite bit. In the old Lemony Snicket books, the series of unfortunate events, where like the first chapter of each one would be telling you everything that happened in the previous ones.
Oh, really?
Just in case. Like
any kind of narrative device? Was there a reason in the narrative to recap what was going on? Or
normally it was inspired by something horrible that was happening to them, something unfortunate, you could say.
An unfortunate event.
By the way, remember all of this.
Okay. Yeah, that's fair enough. That's fair enough. And I guess the book series itself it's almost like just a list of bad things. That's actually an alternate title for the series. And so you've got to recap them over and over again.
Old Daniel Handler can have that for free.
You're welcome, Dan. You're welcome, Dandler. So what happened?
I mean, as I recall, not much. It was more of a kind of dense chapter.
Yeah, it was very internal.
It was a bit like an episode of 24. I felt like we were going through in real time, where the Robus, the sort of AI, he had said, "That's it. You've got to find these shards for me.
I'm going to kill you all unless you find the shards."
And thank you, that was him. And so they'd all gone, fuck. They wanted to see if they could do, I can't remember what it's called, a Lobo logout.
A Lobo logout, yeah.
Lobo logout.
Big bad brain syndrome. Yes.
It was unfortunately a kind of 90% fatal, and the 10% they were kind of burying the lead that you were not in a good way.
Well,
you weren't going.
You didn't get big bad brain, but you did get sort of long-term death.
You got big bad brain. You didn't get the baddest of brains.
Fair.
So they couldn't do that. They were like, it was very much a chapter of setting up like, well, this is it. Like we are going to have to do this.
The stakes were powerfully high. I think you'd agree.
Apart from Art 3 Miss, she was like, because she'd never put on an Oni because she was too good for it, and because she knew the second she did that, Wade would have been looking into her toilet cameras or whatnot.
Yeah.
And so she never done what. So she like checked out. She was on her real life body, her IRL body. That was wasn't there a term for this?
What, being like riding skinwards or something? Would probably be.
Yeah, no. I swear, early on there was something like what it meant if you were. Oh yeah, the Earl. They literally said the Earl, didn't they? Yeah, fuck.
I think the full thing was skinning it up in the Earl. I think was the
fuck. I hate that. I hate that so much. I'm so angry that I remembered that. So in the Earl, she was on a plane.
Yeah.
And then the chapter ended very dramatically with her jumping from the plane. He'd obviously seen Mission Impossible Fallout. She did a big skydive. Then what's his name? The AI. He took it over. He took over the plane, tried to crash it into her, and missed. But then she landed on the ground. He crashed it into the ground right near her.
Yeah, and what happened was for an answer.
Her camera cut out, and then he didn't really mention that it was back. And then at the end, it cut out again, which is it's doubly bad. A couple
of times. Yeah, that is bad. And that's where we pick up. He's seeing a bunch of charred bodies because she landed sort of in some office buildings, which I feel I might not have mentioned because in my head,
you did not.
What I sort of visualized this was the plane had Halliday, it had Mark Rylance's face at this point, and it was like cackling madly, crashing into the island from Castaway, and Samantha was on that.
Well, yeah, island. I was very much imagining a kind of cornfield North by Northwest situation. Okay. You didn't really mention it was closer to a sort of 9/11.
Yeah, I mean, there are a dozen different fires raging across an entire park full of office buildings. So, and it looks like a war zone, in fact, down there. Which is a shame.
Oh, wow.
Chapter 0011. Minutes passed, but to me it felt as though time had completely stopped. And there's a really good new technology word coming up, see if you notice it. I stared at the images on the view screen in shock as an aching hollowness spread across my limbs.
Was it hollowness?
No, it's listen again. I stared at the images on the view screen. That was one word, that last bit.
What's a view screen?
It's just a screen.
Is it as opposed to other sorts of screens, like a hear screen and a smell like screen?
A screen that stops you from viewing something. Like a screen between you and some nudity.
Or like a sunscreen.
Yeah, like that. Yeah. So you didn't want you to get to be thinking that you were watching some sunscreen at this point, because you'd be like, why?
I'd be so confused. They probably don't need that tech in the Oni.
My mind played a montage of every moment I'd ever spent with Samantha.
Well, don't say everyone. We know what you're thinking about, and it's not
both
not
in the Oasis
held her hand.
and in reality.
Oh, there we go.
He's a horny guy, isn't he, Wade? That's one of the aspects of his character we haven't talked about a great deal, because he's got huge incel vibes, but Ernest goes out of his way to let us know that he has fucked. He doesn't currently. But he has.
He's not like,
currently. He is maidenless, but he has previously.
He's on the wagon at the moment.
Yeah, it's quite weird. Like, he's fueled by it. I would say he's a character like whenever in hindsight he does anything, I think it's from a kind of horny lust for arcades, a horny lust for Spielberg, John Hughes movies.
Yeah, it's no, I agree. Do you think, like, I suppose the obvious answer is no, but like, do you think you could maybe in the future, when this is set, be accepted into the incel community if you have fucked, but find yourself now in a position where you no longer can?
I don't think that incels are ever going to get to that level of inclusivity, I'm afraid.
That's such a shame.
I think something like an Oasis would only make them double down on inceldom as well. Like, it would be truly awful. Imagine, because they'd have a whole planet. They'd be like on Incelonia 4 or something, just fucking crashing.
Well, not that.
Into each other.
They wouldn't be doing that.
No, yeah, true.
Do you think that there'd be a new strain of inceldom for people who have refrained even from partaking in the sort of Oni experience of fucking?
Oh, that's interesting. Yeah, I think so.
Like, you have to be kind of like a purist.
I think definitely. I think because it is almost religious as it is, like, they're big on the kind of, they call it cope, don't they? When you're like, I don't know, if you watch porn or something, it's like, well, that's just cope because you're permanently incel. So I think they would have a whole sort of puritanical planet, and they'd sort of reinvent like
religion,
a church,
Christianity.
Yeah, it'd be really bad. Basically, they're looking at these. Did I mention the view screens that they're looking at?
Yeah. Sorry, yes.
And it's not good. I hate to break that to you, listeners. It's not good. There is fire. There's charred corpses.
Charred body and it's labelled.
And it says, yeah. There is this, as you can imagine, like Artemis has been like a sister to us, the reader, right?
She's thought you were going to say Wade.
Well, no, I hope not. She's just this cool guy, this cool girl guy that you're like, wow, she's, everyone wants to be Artemis. You want to be around her.
We don't all want to have the birthmark.
No, that's true. Thanks for raising that because Ernest would. If you
he'd be the first.
If we can get that elephant out of the room, then she's been great, and now she's
she does all right with it.
She does all right. She's still hot. Like Wade would still, maybe not right now,
and has
and
never again has. I
know. But yeah, just imagine the mood in this place. You've got Faisal, you've got H, you've got Shota, you've got Wado and Watts, and they're looking at what could be a barbecued Artemis just on a view screen. Like, that's not right, is it? There's something bad about that. And what I want you to notice here is that Cline is the master of like freezing, that incredible skill that great writers have of just like capturing a moment and holding it in our hands so that we can examine it from every angle for the grieving process. And I think what we're going to see here is all 7 stages of that.
2 sentences
out across probably the rest of the book. So let's see. H breaks the silence, and H is like, oh, maybe she's not dead. Like, and Shoto's like, nah. Do you see that fireball? No way she had enough time to get clear of it. And they do a cool thing of they go through all the crash footage several times, frame by frame.
Okay,
which is that's good. That's normal. And the conclusion is, this hasn't. There's no way. There is no way. I didn't want to believe she was dead, but I wasn't going to delude myself either. Despite how Samantha Cook was often depicted in movies and cartoons, she wasn't a superhero. Here in the real world, she was just a regular person. And then he uses the M dash to elaborate.
Yeah.
A geeky Canadian gamer girl from the suburbs of Vancouver.
Oh, wow.
And that's
just like you or me.
Yeah, exactly. That's it. This could, there but for the grace of God, go I. I'm always jumping out of a jet into an office block.
You're always digging down with Wade those 3 or 4 times and then never again.
And so Wade is, I think it's fair to say, he's in shock.
This is the lowest he's been.
This is like since his aunt was crushed. This is the new.
Is this worse?
I would say. Well, let me ask you this. Riddle me this: crushed or burnt?
Well, what I would say that the thing is that this one is less visually comical, unless the plane did have the face on it, as you imagine,
and it had its mouth open.
If it had that, then I still think that's possibly more horrifying than
that would be like, really scary to die.
Because the being crushed by the big stack of caravans just makes me think of like that Buster Keaton gag where the front of the house falls down, except like she doesn't move.
Crucial,
there's no big hole.
Yeah, they forgot to fill that into the caravans.
I think he wasn't having sex with his aunt, as far as I know.
Not as much. The narrative doesn't go there. I mean, there's subtext.
It doesn't say that he is.
It doesn't rule it out. It doesn't rule it out. And you know what they say?
That's the joy of literature.
It's all here in the text. So if someone wants to make that interpretation, like that one long post that someone did about how McGonagall engages in a kind of orgy, a smorgasbord of cat sex on the daily, then they're welcome to do so. Now, we can't necessarily associate ourselves with those claims, but nor will we distance ourselves from them particularly either.
In case they turn out to be right.
Yeah, we want to hedge our bets here with Wade's sexual proclivities. But yeah, there's just this fucked up vibe, as you can well imagine.
Yeah.
Wade at the moment is like, he's not even sad, I don't think. He's just sort of dumbstruck. And it's at that moment that the phone rings. And you'll never guess who it is. It's who?
It's Ogden. It's Og.
It's not.
No?
It's Anorak himself.
No.
James Halliday's evil AI calling to express my condolences for the loss of your friend, Anorak said. I was genuinely surprised. He would say, I was genuinely surprised by Miss Cook's actions. I calculated a very low probability she would attempt to bail out of that auto jet. Who knew she would be so foolish? He shrugged. I warned her, didn't I?
How do you shrug? How do you shrug over the phone?
Maybe he's on a view screen as well.
Wow, it's a video telephone. That's
technology.
That is the future.
They've got Skype in the future.
Fucking hell.
And so I don't know, like, what tone do you get from this? Because when I read that, it seems ill-timed. Yeah,
I think there's a kind of smugness. He's playing the mind games. He's fucking with Wade's head a bit, isn't he?
It's Yomi. It's the Japanese word I discovered for like the kind of mind games in like fighting games where you're trying to like get in, duck and dive through the neurons.
And he knows that like if Wade was at his fighting best, then there's a chance that he'd find a way out of all this.
He'd gunned him into a frenzy.
Straight out of it. And then, so what he wants is, if you kill the spirit, if you kill the mind, it's like Dune, you know,
fear is the mind killer. And he is fear.
And Wade is right now thinking he's never going to get his leg over again. So
he's never been more afraid.
He's as terrified as a man
his hot arm was crushed. And that sex doll got impounded for unpaid parking.
Yeah, I'm still worried about that.
That sex toy is a big Chekhov's gun from Ready Player One. It's going to they're going to find out how to spirit and a soul that Halliday had implanted into it in Ready Player One. And it will save the day.
I mentioned to you that I watched with Mark that movie Boiling Point, and it's like set real time, done in one shot, like the first hour and a half that this restaurant is open one night. And literally the first like 20 minutes was Chekhov's everything. It couldn't have been like more obvious. There was Chekhov's nut allergy. There was Chekhov's racist customer. There was all the like favorites where you're just like, oh, here we fucking go. Like just wait for the payoff.
That Chekhov, he had a lot of things. That's what I'm always saying.
After he noticed that thing he kept doing with guns, he started doing it with all sorts.
He just started claiming all kinds of objects.
Yeah.
That's Chekhov's chair.
Yeah.
All right, fuck off.
Calm down.
What are you going to do, sit in it in Act 3 and fall off? You little dick. So I think I'm with you here. I think Anorak... you've got to remember he's a disgusting robot, so he doesn't understand our human emotions like we do with our beating hearts.
I thought you were a big fan of robots. I thought you were going to be
this is devil's advocate. I'm pro Anorak. Right. I just want to get that on the record. I don't know if I made that clear.
That's good.
But from the perspective of our human protags, this has got to hurt. This is this is the last person Wade wants to be chatting with right now, isn't it?
Well,
almost certainly.
He'd rather anyone else was on the phone.
People start screaming.
Who's the guy who's kicking the shower?
Nolan Sorrento.
He'd rather be chatting to him. And he killed his MILF aunt.
Yeah, so sad. R.I.P. MILF aunt. H shouts at him like, if you hadn't murdered her, she'd still be alive. And her voice
That's a great sentence. Thanks, H.
Yeah, I did like that. Murdered is in italics as well, if that adds anything for you. It did for me. And Anorak takes on this tone of like this almost sense of inevitability. It's kind of Thanos-esque, I think you'll agree.
Right.
Like, of course I did, dear, Anorak replied softly. I didn't want to kill her. I liked her. She was an incredibly brave and intelligent young woman, but she gave me no choice. If I hadn't punished her for disobeying me, what message would that have sent? And so he's talking here about like, front. This is toxic masculinity at its core, and it's crazy to think that that's with robots too now.
What if the robot had taken a different tactic to break Wade psychologically, and had instead said that he like really regretted killing her because like now what was going to happen to like all of her boyfriends?
And then he's like sends a bunch of photoshops.
Yeah, and like
here
videos.
She is with Justin Bieber.
Oh my goodness, and she was fucking them silly. I've never seen such satisfied boys. Wade's just like on his knees.
Scream crying.
Pounding the floor like the end of Planet of the Apes.
That'd be really sad. But yeah, so basically at this point, Anorak is making the claim that, he doesn't want to do any of these things. He doesn't want to be a bad guy. Circumstances forced him to it.
I think he does.
Well, that could be cynical.
I know he said he doesn't, but now hear me out. he could be lying.
Robots can't lie.
He could be lying because he doesn't actually have to do any of this.
I guess if you've been programmed to be a bad boy,
but he kind of was not programmed to be that.
Well, he was programmed to be something and then decided not to be programmed to do that anymore. So
yeah, that was very good actually. It was in that second where he was supposed to die and then he decided not to.
What if no? You're nothing like James Halliday H told him. You're not human. You're a fucking toaster. So she's got him there big time.
That is huge.
Anorak though, and this is like arguing with me when I refuse to
is this just water off an AI's back?
Completely serene and calm, like a beautiful pond. And he carries on talking softly. And this is pretty cool as well. Because one thing that I've been worried about the last couple of chapters, like the emotionometer has been ticking up. And sure, it's getting the blood pumping. It's getting the pulse quickening with all of the love and crushing that's going on. But the references, they've been kind of few and far between.
Actually, you make a fantastic point there.
And I love books, but I love books when they reference things.
Has he referenced anything so far?
Not.
I mean, a view screen, is that a Star Trek thing?
It could be a comic. There could be a comic that says view screen, like maybe Batman saw one.
I suppose it's in a way it's kind of a reference to my life because there's loads of view screens in there. But
so he's referencing reality.
I don't want him to mention my life. I'd like him to mention some sort of like.
You're not from the 80s.
I want him to mention a sort of franchise, maybe.
Something, an intellectual property.
Yeah, exactly.
IP or
bust.
Yeah. To quote Sarah Connor, "You're all dead already."
My God!
This is going to get quite political, so I just want to warn some of my listeners.
I'm glad that you were setting me up there, and there was payoff.
Yeah.
If you'd said that, and then there were no more references, I don't know.
Because to quote Sarah Connor, that's Sarah Connor from the Terminator, the robot.
Terminator, yeah.
And the robot in that movie is a bad robot, but the robot becomes a good robot. So maybe that's the way the wind's blowing.
Maybe he'll steal that plot.
Maybe he'll put his thumb up as he gets digitally melted or something. Or in a beautiful act of poetic justice, what if he gets crushed by a caravan and there's only one thumb left?
Like he does a thumb down.
Bye! Shutting down. So, like I said, this is about to get pretty political. Now, Ernest, he is not afraid to do politics. He just chooses not to. He chooses to be kind of above them.
And when he does do them, let me tell you, he gets a bit of backlash.
And it's not fair, is it? Because everyone is entitled to their own view. And if Ernest's view is that, just have more money and you'll be kind of de facto right, then who do the woke mob to him.
Who do the woke mob think they are to say otherwise?
It's crazy. Well, it's snowflakery.
It's probably because they don't have any money.
Yeah, it's jealousy, isn't it?
Yeah,
that's the problem with left-wing politics. It's a politics of envy, and I've just coined that phrase, and I hope it takes off. You're all dead already. Now that's a weird thing to say. Like, I guess what I've thought when he said that first is, because we're literally locked into a kind of digital saw trap. Mm-hmm. But no, actually, he doesn't mean that.
Okay.
You, your friends, your customers, all of you poisoned your own planet, destroyed its climate, defiled its ecosystem, and killed off all of its biodiversity. He pointed at each of us. You're going to be extinct soon by your hands, and you know it. So that's a climate change thing that he's got going on as well.
But what's he going to do about it?
No, he's saying he's just stating facts. he's just spitting raw facts.
And I want in on it. It looks like great fun.
This is just another thing I like about you all.
The thing about you is you're too slow. Look how quickly I could burn down the Amazon.
It's difficult, isn't it, in this... You know what it's like these days. You can't say anything, can you? You can't say anything.
You will be arrested and thrown in jail.
It's wild out there. And to see an author pin their stripes to the controversial and in this case, like an embedded kind of theme. It's not something that he's just now said. Like, well, I suppose it is. It's something that he has just now said. But I guess if you go think back, maybe that's been a theme for the whole book about climate change.
There was certainly that bit about them killing a lot of disabled people.
That's a kind of change in the climate of what is moral and
it's certainly it's a change in the demographics.
Yeah, and I guess it's great to see that he's not afraid to say what he believes in.
He was building Chekhov's spaceship full of cum.
Chekhov's cum ship.
Yeah.
I can't wait for that to pay off. The thrust here is that he seems to be. It's quite a roundabout argument.
Sorry, I'm just going to say it again. Like, I don't know if we can call this necessarily being political.
Because he has said about climate. He said about ecosystem.
Yeah, but he didn't say.
I said about ecosystem and biodiversity.
He didn't say anywhere that this was bad.
He says about the ecosystem, though.
He just sort of said, like, you were doing this, and it's like, cool.
Also, and to quote Sarah Connor, remember, you're all dead.
That was beforehand, though. That was beforehand.
I'm just saying that sort of couch. Yeah. That's the context.
I'm sorry. You know what? Maybe
because that's because that's Terminator.
Maybe you're about to read the very good political payoff.
No, the political bit's over now. But I think we all enjoyed it while it was.
Oh, I see. Right. Yeah.
Because you can have two. You don't want the whole book.
No.
You've got to have a bit of fun.
In fact, is there? You don't have another reference or something for me, do you? Or
soon, I'm sure. I'm sure.
Okay.
It says view screen again.
I'll set off. Cool. I was going to say I'll set off for some lingo.
Now get to work, kids. He finishes his political
his diatribe.
Really, yeah. When he called us kids, I finally snapped and went into a total berserker rage, lunging at the view screen as if I could crawl through it and throttle him. You'll pay for this, you son of a bitch! I shouted.
Wow, Wade's become an older man.
Because I'd obviously seen way too many movies, says Wade. That's self-aware.
Wow. It's so good that like Klein has managed to bring the reference to a new stage of being where you don't actually have to reference any particular thing.
You can
just say a medium.
Yeah.
Like I lunged at the screen like they do in movies.
Yeah.
I can't think of any movies right now, but like
we've all seen them.
We've all seen it happen.
But we've talked about that. That was on one of our early observations, is that like the logical conclusion of this style of writing is that you just have a book where you open it. It's just like, remember games. Yeah, fucking do. Oh, wow, 5 stars.
Chapter 2, books.
What about this? What about this Pac-Man? That's one. Bye.
Well, I mean, it kind of is definitely the end game of that, because you will soon reach a point where, because I mean, last week we had that, the interstitial content was it Steve? I can't remember.
The reviewer, the good reader.
The reviewer for whom like this book was written, like almost personally.
Yeah.
And he didn't like it because he didn't really like the tone with which Klein.
Well, because he was a true nerd.
Yeah, and Klein was some kind of imposter. And eventually, like, you will reach a point where it's sort of like a thumbs up, thumbs down sort of booing, where they go like, remember Pac-Man? You go, yeah! And then they go, remember Ms. Pac-Man? You go, I don't remember that at all! Boo! Turn the book off!
Yeah.
So you have to like just say like more broadly, like, God, remember this decade?
There's a real kind of number one quality to it, where like I think you could boil down the complaint of that guy seemed to be, it was just the affect of like how he was referencing. It wasn't the referencing.
He was annoyed he hadn't written it.
Yeah, but he was also annoyed that the way he couched his references didn't conform to the way he wanted them to be couched. Yeah. So like you could have that guy and Ernest Cline standing in 2 podiums, probably not in them so much as in front of them, and just sort of looking at each other, and one of them has to say like Tetris, and the other one has to say the next reference. Yeah. And like people would develop strong opinions about who was winning the game. And that is really fucked up. Like that's kind of more important than anything Wittgenstein ever discovered about language. Like there's something hidden inside freaky men that you can just be like, oh, Call of Duty, the original one. And people would be like, fucking yeah. And then if he came out and was like, Titanfall, then they'd be like, get him off, fucking kick his head in. It would be so wild.
Burn him.
Like, yeah, it's
turning the big dial that says references and watching the audience's reaction.
That'd be really good. That'd be a really good show. Now, some plot is going to happen. Anorak, he doesn't, and as you wouldn't, because he is just, well, there are a few reasons why Wade's threatening doesn't scare him. Number one is he's behind a view screen, but number two, more fundamentally, he's imaginary, he's AI. Yeah. So what are you going to do?
Well, he is. Let's face it now, because we're about halfway through the book, are we?
40. It just doesn't seem to be going up.
No.
43%.
No, we've been at 43% for 5 chapters.
It's so sad.
We're nearly halfway through the book now.
Yeah.
I feel it's about time that we just accept
Wade's
going to lose.
Yeah.
Anorak has won. He's unbeaten.
And to be fair, if that happens, good book.
Good. Yeah.
Book.
If that
Wade
happens,
gets
I
killed.
will. Yeah.
If he gets crushed by a big inflatable aunt, then that will be really the story that we came here for. Chekhov's doll comes back to life with a vengeance.
Just strangles him to death.
Yeah. The Anorak response here is pretty cool. He starts singing a song, which is a reference. He taps an imaginary watch and sings, "Time keeps on slipping, slipping, slipping into the future."
Seal.
4 dots.
Okay.
So that's something to think about. And then Anorak is gone. They go back to the view screen of this weird, like, frame-by-frame Artemis snuff movie that they've all been kind of directing, I suppose. Vision mixing. Yeah. And Faisal or someone tells them that a medevac helicopter is en route to the crash site.
That's good.
It's going to be ages before it gets there. And also, as H repeats, how could anyone survive an explosion?
Well, they couldn't. No one has ever survived a plane crashing into them. Yeah.
The plane, so just to let's put, because Artemis has been a really important character. Like, I feel like she deserves a send off. And what happened was, just very briefly again, she was in her physical body. She bailed out of the jet because she didn't want to. Wasn't he going to make her drive around the world until she ran out of fuel or something?
Yeah, basically.
And then the plane would crash anyway. So, she acted. She was decisive, and we loved her for that. We fucking loved her for that. God rest her.
That is. Can we say that's an official girl boss moment?
Yeah, but like the Icarus before her, she girl bossed too close to, in this case, the ground.
Well, women weren't meant to boss.
Yeah, that's why.
And this is what happens.
For it. A plane always hits them. Yeah, 100% of the time. It's really,
you put them
really
in charge
weird.
Of something, and they will jump out of a plane.
Then they get hit by one, even if they're in a no-fly zone. Yeah. So she jumped out. You thought that's cool. And you got to see, didn't we get to see that beautiful image that Klein painted for us of Artemis? And she was far enough away, I remember, that you couldn't quite see the birthmark. But you could see the parachute
that said... face.
Yeah. You could see the parachute that said, like, Art 3 Miss. Yeah. Probably hashtag Gamer Girl, all that stuff. And you're like, yeah, fucking yeah, Artemis.
Hashtag top 1% on OnlyFans.
Yeah.
Wade sat there going, what?
Hang about. She came down and you're like, wow, that's beautiful. And then the plane starts banking around. Oh, fuck.
It starts champing its teeth.
Yeah, Mark Rylance starts cackling and shouting his own Mark name, proving for once and for all that he's just not in character when he plays that role. And she cuts her cords. Boom. Dead. How could anyone survive an explosion like that? H muttered. You have to hit the ground running, we heard a familiar female voice say.
What? Hang on, we all female voice?
To see Samantha's avatar just as it finished rematerializing in the corner of the conference room. Then I kept on running, she continued, and I hit the deck just before the jet made impact.
Wow.
She's alive. And what I appreciate is
what he's doing, doesn't he?
Well, he does, because like pacing is one of those things that, in my view, it's very hard to teach. You kind of have to have an innate feel for. I don't suppose it is innate. It's just you have to have consumed enough other media, and maybe not all of it, Pac-Man, to have a sense of rhythm and where things should happen in a story.
You're absolutely right. A worse writer would probably have prolonged that wait so that you had a chance for the emotional
maybe to feel an emotion.
Yeah.
But and what Klein says is
time in between
no time
view screens. No.
Klein is like, no, let's get back to the references.
Let's just have it straight back on.
Fuck this sort of bullshit crying about people being dead thing, because it turns out they're alive.
Yeah, it's all right. Don't worry about it. The whole of the rest of this chapter was pointless.
Yeah. It's democratic prose as well, right? Because it's like, he doesn't know my story and he doesn't know if I've had an experience of my birthmarked girlfriend falling out of a plane and being killed by Mark Rylance. And he doesn't want to re-traumatize me if that's the case. So he's like, right, we're straight out of it. We're straight from now. She's alive. H and Shoto run over. Wade resists the urge to rush over and give her a hug. So instead he just hugs Faisal, which is a lovely moment. And I think
Faisal's just like, what are you doing?
Touch me, sir. Please stop that now. She is alive. he's thinking, because he had that whole montage that he played in his head that could have gone on for minutes.
He was
of all the times that he had sex with her 3 times.
Yeah.
In an old man's mansion that looks like Rivendell in the middle of Colorado or something. What a fucking romantic spot. But now he's like, oh, I've got time again. It's kind of the opposite of that guy at the end of the Twilight Zone where his glasses break.
Yeah.
It's like if that guy's glasses broke and then Rod Serling was like, but luckily he had one. He fell over right next to a Specsavers. I've got time now. It's all so fair. I love reading, and then it just do. That truly was the Twilight Zone. So he's thinking, oh my god, I can tell her how wrong I've been about everything. I can apologize for not listening to her, but Artemis doesn't stick around. She's got shit to do. I only jumped online for a few seconds to let you all know I was okay, she said, pulling free of the hug that everyone has kind of wrapped her up in. Now, you're going to like this line because she's been through a lot, right? Like, this was a near-death experience. She was nearly chomped to death by Mark Rylance. But she still got the fucking wherewithal to make a ref, to do us a little ref.
Oh,
now I need to go let the medics clean me up. There are also a few things I need to do, and I can't do them while Halliday 9000 is watching.
Oh!
Her deadpan,
she has done him.
Her deadpan 2001 joke caused me to involuntarily, I read, and was like, oh, hello, snort laugh.
Does he, he says, in case we didn't know, he says...
Yeah, no, because that was Halliday 9000 was the deadpan, yeah. 2001
joke.
And actually, 2001's in italics. So if you were like, is that how 2001st joke?
Was that a joke made? From 2001?
Yeah. Luckily, you could probably look that up. You could just Google Deadpan 2001 joke and you get the full film. It's Stanley Kubrick presents, a 2001, a Space Odyssey, brackets the movie.
It was the first double colon
#sci-fi
movie title.
That's why he's a genius. 2 Kubrick, they call him. Samantha was the only person who had ever been able to make me do this, and she knew it, referring to the snort laugh where he goes,
oh, I see.
I'd be so upset to be the only... I don't want people to snort laugh around me. Like if someone was like, oh my god, Isaac, you're the only person who can make me snort laugh, I'm like, let's never meet again, because I don't want to hear that. I don't want that. I don't want to be snotted on by a stranger. Let's pause here for some interstitial, because obviously like we're still reeling from, well, not an emotional... Well, it's kind of like a plot whiplash, right? Like she's dead, she's not. She's dead, she's not. Like before you can even come to terms with it, you don't have to. Because she is not dead, she's alive.
And you didn't. It's okay because you didn't, because there wasn't time to, and you didn't care.
Yeah, you didn't care. Well, because you don't like the characters as well. No, which is a really clever thing Klein does, so that you don't feel sad.
So if they did die, it wouldn't matter.
You actually hope they do.
He actually is just taunting you by keeping them alive for as long as possible,
for as many books as they'll publish.
We've got some content here. It's the first time I think that this is content we have discussed, if very briefly, before the show, and it was an article that was released at 9 p.m. Now it was released at 9 p.m. on April 1st.
That's what sounds like they're trying to get it under the radar.
Yeah,
well, the government releases stuff. I think
it's like an attempt by dear old Noah Balatsky to sort of like put a piece out that if, as inevitably people did, it was hated.
Yeah.
He could say, well, it was just a joke.
Yeah.
It was just a joke. But the fun thing is that you have to get April Fools out of the way by noon. So
that is one of the rules. I don't love that rule. I think I've always thought, it's April Fools, not April rules. Like, let's have some fun with it. 12:05. If you're going to fool me, more fool me.
Right. Oh, I see.
That's just my. I guess
you're
that's
looking
just like
for
a 24-hour
Fools.
I think why constrain it to April 1st as well? I want a whole year of mischief.
Okay. Who do we write to about
that? You tell me. The Speaking Clock. Obama?
Maybe.
I don't know.
Well, this was published for some reason on NBCnews.com.
Oh, I didn't actually know it was an NBC article. I assumed it was like someone's blog.
No. It was Noah Balatsky, who is behind most of the terrible takes that appear in our lives.
Oh, very cool.
And it was in the culture and lifestyle section of NBC News, which says at the top, think, opinion, analysis, essays.
Mm-hmm.
And the headline here, which really did make me think, was Morbius is Marvel's take on vampire assimilation, with the byline being, although Dracula has long represented the outsider, Morbius spends the whole film trying to be more normal.
More normal than Jared Leto is capable of performing
of ever being. Yeah, so this is the new Jared Leto movie where he plays Morbius, the living vampire.
Can we agree that no one's ever heard of Morbius before?
I had last week.
Like, I don't even mean the film. I just mean like the idea of a Morbius.
No, I hadn't. Apparently, I think it's nothing. I think it's from Spoderman.
Oh, really? Okay.
I think it's from the Spoderman universe.
So there's vampires in Spider-Man. Like, Spider-Man is a science baddie. So unless this is a vampire who was actually bitten by a bat.
Well,
and developed. In which case he should have followed a different naming convention.
It's actually much dumber than that.
Okay.
As we'll see here. So this article is by Noah Balatsky, cultural critic.
Very cool.
And it begins with one of the most culturally critical sentences I've ever heard. In Bram Stoker's original novel, the foreign, perverse Dracula is almost universally read. Now, you can't say that. Like,
almost
you
universally.
Cannot say that. You can't say almost universally, and you probably shouldn't in any way say universally, especially if you're about to make something up.
Yeah, that's one of my have key a big problem things. With almost in any literature criticism, because I don't know. I think we talked about this before. My experience of studying English at uni was that every single sentence anyone ever said was like, it's almost as if it's just like, well, it's not like that. Actually, what you mean is it's not like that.
Either it is or it isn't. Like, you've said almost because it wasn't. Is almost universally read to stand in for immigrants, queer people, and Jews. What are your immediate thoughts?
Well, my immediate thought was that, first of all, I mean, I don't claim to be a Dracula scholar. I'll put my cards on the table.
You never have.
Right? Now let me clarify. I mean, Dracula the novel. The guy I actually know a great deal about. I'm working on a special thesis on some of his later work, some of his later bites. But certainly, I think I've heard of the anti-Semitism in Dracula before. I think I've heard about that. I've not read the book for over a decade, so couldn't point to what it pertains to in particular. I've never, ever heard that he's supposed to represent immigrants. He is an immigrant to Whitby or something, right?
Yeah. Not in the usual way.
Not in the usual sense where he's an aristocrat. Yeah. Well, actually, that's increasingly the usual way. If Priti Patel had a way.
Oh! Yes. Hang on a minute.
Yes. Get on. Pause this.
Hang on a minute.
This could be called Big Good Takes.
I've been Klein too much Klein, and you're just all over it with the politics. You have to calm you down.
And the queer angle I've never ever encountered as a take.
I mean, he's a bit gay.
It doesn't mean there's nothing there, but I don't think you can say it's universally read as that.
No, and I don't think that there's really anything you can read in the text where he's supposed to be a kind of a representation for like queer people. He's just a bit camp.
Is it Dracula himself that Noah is arguing is a stand-in for queer people?
Yeah.
Okay. And does he? I assume he kind of evidences that rather than just saying everyone says this as a kind of appeal to authority. I'm sure.
No,
he just
says the next sentence is just when asked to choose sides.
Oh, check. You might have missed the citation. If you look, it will be like a little one in a square bracket.
There's a little. You could click on the word queer people.
Yeah, and then that'll probably take you to.
It takes you
evidence.
to. This is interesting. It takes you to another page on NBCnews.com.
Oh, okay. Is it a page that's about all of the different
times? It says, from Dracula's daughter to Carmilla, lesbian vampire depictions prove immortal.
Okay. Not Dracula himself, though, doesn't do any lesbianism as far as I...
That wasn't there, no.
Okay. That's probably just an oversight.
This is an adjacent thing, but what about when people call something a Dracula?
Yeah, I really fucking love that. I actually really strongly support it. Some of my students will do that, and I will not ever correct them because I think it's so funny.
Yeah, it's fine.
Yeah, it's really good. I think the word vampire doesn't have nearly as much like fun because a vampire, I don't know, it's kind of been co-opted by, maybe it's just when we grew up that they were like edgy vampire.
Yeah.
But a Dracula like has such a fun Halloween spirit about it. Like someone dressed up as a Dracula, a skeleton. I like that. I like that a lot.
Frankenstein.
Yeah.
So when asked to choose sides, you rooted for the virtuous British heroes, not the blood-sucking Count. Making assumptions again, but I think I probably did. I think he's got me there.
Yeah, and it sounds like he did as well, because he does describe one of them as virtuous and one of them as a blood-sucking Count.
Yeah, what you're not saying that he's proudly anti-immigrant. That's what this article is about. In the new Marvel superhero film Morbius, can we now say the word Morbius is rubbish? The name Morbius is rubbish.
Is it just like that's his character's name? But what were they going for? They're obviously going for Mobius, like the idea of infinity, but then also like morbid. It's like a portmanteau of morbid and Mobius is Mobius.
Yeah, his name is actually Dr. Michael Morbius. And that goes back to one of our other favourites, alliteration, yeah. In the new Marvel superhero film Morbius, the vampire is the good guy. What he is not, however, is a champion of the marginalised.
Not in my name is what I always think when I watch a superhero movie, and they're not a champion of the marginalised.
Although Dracula has long represented the outsider, Morbius spends the whole film trying to be more normal. Brilliant Dr. Michael Morbius, that's Jared Leto, has a rare condition that leaves him weak, barely able to walk, and in constant need of blood transfusions. So he dedicates his life to studying this disorder and defeating it. He develops artificial blood, which saves millions of lives, but doesn't cure his own illness. Damn. Then, because this is a superhero movie, he turns to splicing human and bat DNA.
Why is that? What do you mean because it's a superhero movie he does that? That doesn't happen in everyone.
Because he was like, I've got to get some splicing going on. What have we got in the lab? And it was bats.
Yeah.
You'd assume it was mice. And he'd become Dr. Morbius the mouse pyre. But
Dr. Mousepius.
So the experiments, as you'd expect, go awry. And before you could say origin story, he's a superpowered bat creature that needs to feed on blood.
Okay.
Which again, you'd think would be fine because he developed all the artificial blood and he wouldn't need to be a vampire.
Yeah, but it didn't work.
Anyway,
it didn't work.
In addition to the connection to illness and disability, vampires in Morbius are also coded as queer.
Okay.
Now you might. I
haven't seen it.
That's a callback. That's a callback to the original gay Dracula. Surely.
Yeah.
As a child, Morbius becomes
Babadook.
Yeah. Morbius becomes close friends with another similarly afflicted boy named Milo, who's played by Matt Smith off of Doctor Who.
No way.
Yeah. We see Milo early in the film being badly bullied by a group of boys who target him in part because he's weak and can't walk. But they also come after him because he's reading what is essentially a love letter sent by Morbius. You can't keep calling him Morbius when you're referring to him being a kid.
Baby
he was little Michael. No one was calling him Morbius the living vampire when he was 6.
Weirdly, they were, and that's something the film never. It's a plot hole.
That's where he got the idea with the
Easter
bats.
egg. Yeah.
The explicit queer bashing gives a pointed, painful edge at Milo's repeated insistence to Morbius that, quote, "We are the few against the many." Now, I want you to really remember that phrase there. The explicit queer bashing gives a pointed, painful edge.
As well is he said that this was a love letter. He said that part of the bullying was motivated by homophobia.
Yeah.
Are Matt Smith and Jared Leto in a relationship in the movie, or is this made up? I was just wondering.
No. Well, that's why I want you to hold it in mind.
Okay, cool.
Yeah. So the explicit queer bashing gives a pointed, painful edge to Milo's repeated insistence to Morbius that we are the few against the many. It also, here's a strange thing, it also colours Milo's obvious jealousy of Morbius's co-researcher and romantic interest, Dr. Martine Bancroft.
Okay.
But he could be bi. We don't know.
Yeah.
Queer, it's a big spectrum.
It's an umbrella.
And we take all colours. Milo helps fund Morbius's effort to find a cure for both of them. But while Morbius is horrified by the bloodlust caused by his cure, Milo embraces it. "I'm not ashamed of what I am," he declares. And he tries to convince Morbius he shouldn't be ashamed either.
Mm-hmm.
So there you see that's being gay again.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's
the same.
Yeah. So the separatist supervillain is a common trope from Magneto of the X-Men franchise to Killmonger in Black Panther. Often the script will acknowledge that the bad guy has a point. Mutants are oppressed in the X-Men stories. Black people are oppressed in Black Panther, brackets, and in real life.
You could have got around that by just not saying in Black Panther, but he wanted to definitely make that point.
Yeah. Magneto and Killmonger seek excessive revenge. We're supposed to think, but their call for justice has some merit. Milo isn't accorded that much sympathy. And then here's the kicker of a sentence that I feel a cynic might say kind of unravels some of the article. The movie doesn't acknowledge its LGBTQ themes.
Oh, damn.
That's such a shame, because a second ago it was explicit and pointed, but now it turns out it was made up and in Noah's head. Or how disability is compounded by the callousness of adults, as well as the bullying of children. Milo's rants are just rants. We're not supposed to see his complaints as having any merit. Now, and again, I haven't seen the movie, and maybe I'll watch it and
maybe
I'll come back on
never
this show.
Another thought.
It's a big chance I never will.
Yeah.
But maybe I will, and I'll come back on the show and I'll say, look, I was wrong.
That's the gayest film I've ever seen, you might say.
It does feel a bit like if his rants are about that he likes having to feed off blood.
Yeah.
I don't think that there's much scope for saying that, like, he has a point.
Well,
it's not quite the same as, like, because Magneto, the whole point, is it not, was that he was kind of like victimized in the Holocaust.
Yeah.
And that Killmonger is right.
Yeah. In those two instances, they are both correct, right?
And what they're doing is they are actually trying to redress that balance. Whereas the idea from Noah's article here seems to be that because Milo is in Noah's head gay, it should be okay. The movie should make it at least a little bit okay that he wants to be the living vampire. And that, I just feel like it maybe isn't quite. It's
a like for like. It's an eye for an eye. This is what that phrase means.
It doesn't quite have the same sort of like social redress. Yeah. Morbius does occasionally admit that being super strong is fun, and he has a bond with bats, which is just like.
Both of those 2 points, some of the stupidest observation. He does occasionally admit that being super strong
is fun, and he has a bond with bats. Like, what I want to know
is that supposed to be a plus?
Well, I don't know if it's supposed to be a plus. What I am trying to do is think, like, given that Noah has convinced himself this is all like some kind of gay allegory, it's like, what does having a bond with bats mean? Is this like he sometimes jacks it to gay porn?
That's really funny. It also sort of suggests that if that bond, if he like was just gleeful in the company of bats, that would be enough to satisfy the like narrative conclusion of that allegory.
Yeah.
Like, oh yeah, no, the representation was incredible. There were hundreds of bats in that room.
Let me tell you,
just the most confused
Morbius,
people.
he was flying around with bats, and he was fine. He didn't kick off even once. He was enjoying himself.
Yeah, it's just so lovely to see a man happy to share the screen with bats at long last. After we've traced the line from the first brick that was thrown at Stonewall to Morbius, the living vampire, on screen with 1,000 bats.
Tell me, when's the last time you saw an openly maybe bisexual man?
Sorry, living vampire. Your mistake.
Okay, happy to pallet around with the Batfolk.
Oh my god!
Not since Batman has any superhero been happy to be around bats.
So powerful. It's such a great time.
There are scenes when he's flying amid all the CGI gunk that the story seems to be reaching, ineffectually but still, for a lyrical celebration of weird queer goth transcendence. I just don't believe that it is.
I've seen Marvel movies, and I don't think any of them have that in their kind of palette.
None of those words.
That's something that kind of works for them.
But those moments are fleeting and underdeveloped. And when people have a really bad theory, like something they've brought to the text, right?
Just a touch in this case.
One of the best things is when they start to write about it and realize how little it is informed by the source material, is that when they write in this kind of retrospective disappointment, it's like, I'm sorry, but
you didn't engage with these ideas that I had separate to the film.
Yeah, it reminds me of our favorite videos, The Man Who Can't Do Impressions.
Oh yeah.
And in the third video, he's really upset, and one of the things that he says is, I feel like you weren't using your imagination, which is like an amazing thing to say about an art form which is exclusively about you showing me something so I don't have to imagine. But like, and it reminds me of that, like, it was pretty rude of them not to put in all these things that I thought it was about afterwards, even though it wasn't.
Yeah. I like an underdeveloped is such a patronizing way of describing it. Like, it almost certainly would be a more interesting film if it did explore these themes rather than what I expect, which is just what if Jared Leto was a weird freak for a few hours.
It'd be a much more interesting film if Matt Smith was fucking Jared Leto for a full,
undoubtedly,
unabridged 20
screaming,
minutes.
I love this in a bat sanctuary.
Bats all around.
It's absolutely beautiful.
Matt Smith's going, you know what? If I were allowed to do this, I might not want to drink as much blood. I could probably retire being the living vampire.
But like the fact of then holding up to a standard that you've created in your own head and using words like underdeveloped, that's just very good. I really admire the arrogance required to have that take.
Morbius never talks to Milo about the experiences they share as vampires or contemplates the way marginalization has shaped him. But it hasn't.
Those two things are different as well.
That he's already admitted that there's really no evidence in the movie to say that it has.
That he just wants has shaped him.
And here we go. He just wants to be normal and hetero and settle down with Martine. Okay, fine. Why won't you let him? Like, Dr. Michael Morbius doesn't have to be gay. Like, he can be straight and still be the living vampire. Like, that's absolutely fine. You can be a straight man and enjoy bats. Like,
I don't look.
There's nothing in the
far
rule
be it
book.
From me to overstate my boundaries here. I don't think there should be straight vampires. Like, there's been enough.
You don't cheer for Morbius the vampire. You root for Morbius to defeat the vampire within. Dash, symbolized by Milo.
Okay.
This lack of sympathy.
Who is without?
Yeah.
Crucially.
This lack of sympathy is especially frustrating because in many ways, it's never been a better time to be a vampire. Brackets, at least culturally. Anne Rice, Stephanie Meyer, and numerous other writers have created romantic, appealing vampires. Many of them straight.
Many of them about 30 years ago.
Yeah. Appealing vampires who suggest to one degree or another that Bram Stoker was wrong about Dracula and that marginalized people aren't inherently an evil parasitic threat. He did not say that. Bram Stoker never ever said this.
There's only one Dracula in Dracula. That for me is Bram Stoker's mistake. But that aside,
you should have called it Dracula's.
Yeah, like the fucking that Pac-Man. What's it called? Air hockey table. That it was like 50 pucks. That is my Dracula.
The most obvious example in this context is the other Marvel vampire film Blade, starring Wesley Snipes. Mm-hmm. The film played with negative stereotypes linking black people with addiction, but it also celebrated Blade's outsider status. He's a hero because he's black and because he's a vampire, not despite those things.
Sadly, he was not gay.
Not gay enough for this writer, anyway. Like Milo, he's not ashamed. Morbius, then, is a superhero story about defeating outsiders and monsters, rather than a story about how those outsiders and monsters can be heroes, or about how we should maybe rethink our definitions of heroes and monsters. I guess that's what Morbius wanted, but Milo deserved better. Now this here is the most confusing paragraph of all, because at the beginning, it seemed to be that he was saying it was bad that the original Dracula was a stand-in for immigrants and queer people and Jews because you rooted against him.
Yeah.
And then in this movie, you root kind of for him.
So if you like Morbius and you're happy that he doesn't have the disease where he has to eat blood, but not artificial blood, and hang out with Bat Smith, then I'm unfortunately bound to tell you, a rampant homophobe.
Yeah, well, but I don't think he even knows if he thinks that, because it's saying that it's a story about defeating outsiders and monsters, which with the very first sentence of this article, he said the original Dracula was also about, right? Rather than a story about how those outsiders and monsters can be heroes, which the original Dracula very distinctly was not. Like, we'll give you that.
Super heroic.
No, we should rethink our definitions of heroes and monsters. But why?
Yeah, no, why not?
Okay, no, you're right. Sorry.
What if they were all gayer?
What if they were all gayer? And what if they were all doing it with Matt Smith?
When he thinks, do you remember there was going to be that, like, DC were going to have their DC like
the
villains,
the dark universe,
with like the Mummy and Frankenstein and a Dracula or two, all fucking as far as I can.
Oh wow!
Like that was the vision, and that's why it was cancelled.
And the man couldn't let that happen.
Yeah, exactly.
Fucking
they didn't want us to enjoy ourselves.
There were some extremely good replies that I'd just like to give a little bit of notice to where this was posted by Brandy Jensen. My favourite being from James Gregg, who said, "This makes it abundantly clear that Morbius does not understand the intersectional nature of the multiplicity of his offences." To which dear old Tomosha replied that Karl Marx failed to consider the Jared Leto action thriller Morbius 2022. There are just most of the replies were just really good ways of like summing up the original and how it is like so distinct from Noah's idea. The immortal vampire who spends many human lifetimes amassing a great fortune and literally preying on the underclass. Yes, that character definitely stands for the downtrodden in society. One magazine byline, please.
He doesn't hide the fact that Dracula lives in a big spooky castle.
It's the first thing you know about
when you think of Dracula. Like if I asked you to draw Dracula, I think you'd probably have him in a castle or a coffin in a castle.
I wouldn't have him in like an Airbnb.
I wouldn't have him in heaven in London Soho.
It's just
very powerful.
It's to be fair, it is hard to write an article in which everything you say is wrong. So
I think, for me, the core of that, like absolute distilled genius of that article, is saying that an author is wrong about their character. Saying Bram Stoker is wrong about Dracula is just a phenomenal thing to put to paper.
Especially when, as far as I know, and like correct me if I'm wrong, Bram Stoker is now dead and probably unable to like refute your claims.
You never know.
Oh, that would.
It might have been autobiography.
Twist. Oh my god!
Yeah, it might have just been like the original prefaces. Like, here's some stuff I've been up to.
That
page was lost to history.
Here are some letters my friends were sending to each
other. Right, let's dive back in. Artie, she fucks off. She's got to go and I think she's broken a bunch of body parts and needs to go and be helivaced or whatever the fuck it was. And so it's time, at long last, am I right, to get back to the fucking gunting.
Oh,
where's the gunting been at? I always feel this with books, you know, like you're like, when's the good bit? When's the gunting?
Yeah.
I don't want to see these emotional scenes of characters having feelings and talking about stuff.
No.
I want them to get down to the business of have a riddle, solve the riddle. Hopefully it's about a film or a game that I've heard of or seen.
We bought this book for some top quality gunting action. We didn't buy it for like,
it's an interesting use of we here, but
sure. You know, we like purchased this digital copy of the book and we've been reading it together because we wanted some gunting, not because
and finally Ernest.
Well, and references. And references.
If it's if it's not gunting, references will do, but it can't just be that. And there has to be a strong spine of gunting.
The last bastion is new words, like new text.
True. Okay, I take it back. If it's not references or new words, then it's got to be gunting. And it's those three that
the base of the pyramid of needs is the gunting.
For sure. And they've got to find the second shard and fast. The first shard, you may remember, which we can't remind ourselves too much, but he does actually recap. I'm going to skip over it. He's like, I used a calendar in Og's basement to change the year of the Middletown simulation, blah, 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 obtained the first shard. The first shard had a clue on it. When he's recapping how he found it, the long description ends with, I didn't mention that I paid a girl named Lohengrin $1 billion to figure all this out for me, which is really good. And the O is a 0. I should have mentioned that.
So sorry, like, do these guys need to find the second one?
They need to find all the shards.
Can't Og tell them where the second one is? Because
Og's not telling.
But he's already found it.
He's found it, yeah. He found the second and then the third.
Yeah, but I thought was finding them for...
He is, but he did something. He like, I can't remember, but he did some bullshit that means he's like, I'll never tell.
Yeah, but I assumed he's an old man. I assumed that was for like the third, fourth, and onwards.
I think this is second onwards. Like they only had the first one, and then Og finds the second.
Because I was thinking like he could say to them like, okay, the second one's here, like off you go, and then he'll keep stum. No,
he won't. I think he did have a reason why he wouldn't, and I guess it's just It's probably bullshit.
He doesn't want everyone prying into his wife's fucking knicker drawer.
Yeah, it's fair enough. The first shard has a clue etched into its surface, and here it is. Let's just see if you can solve it. Her paint and her canvas, the 1 and the 0, the very first heroine demoted to hero. Any ideas? Her paint and her canvas, the 1 and the 0. That's computers. That's computers.
Yeah. So her computer.
The very first heroine demoted to hero.
Is it Frida Kahlo?
Are you a gamer at all?
I've played does FIFA football count?
Yeah, that's a game. That's one of the gamer games.
Is it in
Mario at all?
Yeah.
You played some of the Marios. Donkey Kong.
Risk of
Rain 2.
Yep.
It's none of those, but you're getting closer. You're getting a lot warmer. They think it out. They're like, oh man, the fuck is going on? The kind of surface reading is that this is to do with the fact that Kira was like a video game artist. Okay. She was like an environment artist or something. And so they're like, okay, I paint canvas 1 and 0, like digital art. You may remember she made a bunch of digital art. One of them I seem to recall was like a unicorn and a rainbow and like a couple of other things. And then the painting was called like the unicorn, the rainbow, and all of the other. It was just like a list of all the elements.
That's original.
The name, which is good. Our boy Wade is having difficulty kind of mentally engaging with this riddle because what's on his mind is, quote, charred human corpses I'd seen littering the park where her jet had made impact. The bodies of at least a dozen people. So Wade's kind of, I guess you would say, carked by the image of death, which is sad to see. That's sad to see.
Even though, I mean, he didn't seem to care at the time. He was mostly just worried about the one person who he now knows is alive.
Yeah, no comment, I suppose. That just is true.
Oh, okay.
Wade tries to throw out some ideas. They're like, come on, Z. Because remember, he's called Parzival with a Z. And they're like, come on, Z. Yeah. What's your big idea about gunning, Z? And he's like, oh, I don't fucking know. It could be a reference to Ranma, a heroine demoted to hero. I was grasping at straws and H knew it. Come on, Z, she said. Ranma was a boy who changed into a girl, not the other way round. And besides, the clue reads the very first heroine. Right, I said, you're right. Sorry. So Wade's fucked it.
It's about Eve.
I thought of Eve as well. Because I did try and solve this. I sat there and I was like, it'd be cool if this riddle makes sense and you can kind of solve it without having to have the superhero-specific knowledge that is required. Now,
and it does.
I'm no riddle slouch, but I had to give up because I thought, Eve, does she get turned into a man? Well, she came from a man's rib. So
that's
you could argue in a kind of time is the flat circle sense that, maybe dust is a masculine thing to which she's going to return. Like, it's not Eve, is the long and short of it. And as I turned the page, realized there was no way on God's earth that anyone would really solve this without having exactly the set of
knowledge. Oh, okay. It was another what am I thinking of riddles.
It kind of, it was one of those what am I thinking of riddles, which is, I don't know, it's often kind of maligned in the riddle community as bad.
Yeah, we've spoken before on That's a Shame about how that's our other podcast, by the way. It comes out in the in-between weeks of this
every other Sunday.
But we've spoken in there before about how with any kind of puzzle, and I think here as well, like there's a certain thing where you have to trust the puzzle maker.
Yeah, but I guess Klein's saying, do you have to?
And do you trust Klein?
Oh no.
Oh, okay. Well, there you go. It was foolish of you to even try.
Yeah, I think that's what he's trying to tell us is like, you're not up to Wade's level. Like some people, when they're writing a puzzle in a book or in anything, just a riddle of its own, the idea is to, engage the person, have them like think, have them even, a film like National Treasure or something, you get to experience the simulation of that fun of solving, even if there are some leaps that you would never quite, they kind of fudge the edges. Yeah. But what Klein does is say, you're a disgusting piece of trash compared to Wade. You've probably seen at most 2 emulators in your lifetime. View screens, I bet you've got about 3 max. And by kind of negging the reader in that way, it gives you a greater respect for Wade Owen Watts and how clever he and his gunting group are. Would you agree with that analysis?
Well, I'd agree with you insofar as I think that's probably what he thinks.
And it works because you're always saying you love and admire Wade.
Wade, and I think he's a greasy little toad.
Oh,
and I hope he dies.
But you admire his brain, I suppose.
No, that to be honest,
it's one of those
thing
like,
I admire the
least.
He's
a bad guy, but you've got to hand it to him.
He's a bad guy, and he's a bit of a nonce. He's a bit of a perv, and he's really just got no respect for anyone's privacy.
He's got a spaceship full of cum.
He had to. Does have that going for him. I'll give him that. I'll give him that. But even a stop clock and all that.
Now, Shoto is going to come to the fore here, a character who has had very little to do other than repopulate Japan so far. I don't think the first line is about Kira, Shoto said. Her paint and her canvas, the 1 and the 0. I think that's a reference to, maybe I'll pause here and you can throw out. I think that's a reference to, we're all thinking it. Say it with me.
Zelda?
Rieko Kodama. One of the very first
Rieko Kodama.
women video game designers. Yeah. In one of her early interviews, Kira, remember he never told us this, said that Kodama was one of the women who inspired her to work in the video game industry.
Oh, that was one of the things that you didn't tell us about that.
Yeah, if you'd known that, like maybe you would have guessed. I felt like kicking myself, says Wade.
Me too.
In the head.
Me too.
Repeatedly.
This sounds like Carl Pilkington talking about jumping his height. Like, what's he doing?
I love this line. This is such a fucking great encapsulation of Wade. So he's just like beating himself like, oh man, I'm going to kick myself in the head. I knew all about Rieko Kodama. And now, to prove it, it's almost like he's been, like he wants to be the expert. He's like, oh yeah, no. She was one of the co-creators of the Phantasy Star game series. And she'd also worked on the very first Sonic the Hedgehog game, one of Kira's all-time favorite video games. A game that also happens to put the player on a quest to collect 7, in italics, Chaos Emeralds.
Sorry, can we just say again, Kira, the woman, gets one of her favorite games Sonic. Being Sonic, like one of the most famous franchises going, rather than some kind of freakish like game that
some cool retro
that
only
incels and offenders played in like the 80s.
The problem is though, Wade, I guess he's not on his A game, right? He's had this harrowing experience that we didn't really get any insight into or time to think about.
He spent a full 90 seconds thinking he was never going to have sex again. And the toll that can take on a man is immeasurable.
It's terrible. And no, to be fair, he has also lost the robes of Anorak. So he knows what it is to grieve. And we respect and want him to have his privacy during this hard time. But he can't quite put 2 and 2 together. He's like, all right, well, he knows all about this person. But what's the connection between her and the second line of the clue? And he asks exactly that question. And the answer is Rieko Kodama co-created the first arcade game with a woman as its hero back in 1985. He searches his memory. He's like, I don't know who the fuck that is. It's Princess Kurumi, released by Sega in March of 1985. Remember?
No.
American boys didn't want to put quarters in a game with Princess, so they changed the title to Sega Ninja.
Sega Ninja.
Now you know.
Yeah. Oh, I know all about Sega Ninja. Actually, it was a game. Originally, it was a princess character, but boys didn't want to put quarters in to play that game.
1985,
around
kind
that
of like
sort
February,
of time.
March.
Yeah. It was designed partly by by the first female video game designer.
Yeah, that's what I love about it as well. And it was called. They knew it as. Did we talk about this bit already? Sega Ninja is actually what they called it.
Yeah,
when they released it. Because the thing was the little male boys, they didn't want to put the quarters into a princess's fairy.
No, they didn't want to do that
game.
So readers.
It was kind of mid-80s when this was all going down.
What you could say is that it was the first sort of heroine demoted to hero.
Demoted to a hero. And I like the word demoted here because that shows that he's a feminist. And I love that.
It is.
It's one of those cases where like I always appreciate it when an author is very clear about their feminism. I don't know, Ernest, sorry. I don't feel like he had to be because it reads so clearly throughout. It's probably, apart from gunting references and new words, I'd say feminism is the main concern.
Wade and Ernest, by extension, they're nice guys.
Yeah, they are nice guys.
They're nice
capital N, capital
guys,
G.
Yeah.
Yeah. Big fedora energy. He gets so hyped when Shoto puts all this together for him. He says he feels like hugging him. So I did. And I love the kind of follow through there.
Yeah.
He'd always been our Sega scholar and our resident expert on pretty much any video game ever made in Japan, which feels, I don't know, like a kind of obvious point for him to make, as he is the Japanese one of the team.
All right.
And in recent years, he's become a well-known ninja nut.
Oh, fuck off. Now, this is offensive.
Yeah, he also says that he was hikikomori a bit. You know about hikikomori?
Yeah.
This is the like incel phenomenon, right? Where people become like reclusive. And I feel like Ernest probably just heard that word on the Vice documentary that everyone heard it from and wanted to use it. Because I think it's like quite a serious, it's like there isn't a bigger problem than just be like, oh yeah, I was hikikomori last month.
Yeah.
It was fucked. But now I'm a well-known ninja nut. After the contest where he abandoned his avatar's samurai attire out of respect for his late brother, he changed his avatar to a ninja and become a ninja addict. He live streamed himself playing ninja games all day, every day for a month. He had ninja movies on his POV channel.
Sorry, can I is this character actually Japanese?
Yes, he is. Yes.
This is so offensive. I'm sorry.
It is kind of, yeah.
Sorry.
It feels sus to say that the Japanese character is a well-known ninja nut.
All I will say is that, and fair play. I haven't read the first book or this one. Really.
Or this one, yeah.
And I haven't seen the film, but there are only two things that I know about this character. One is that they are fucking their way through the country to repopulate it. Yeah. And the other is that they are a Japanese person who is a ninja nut who streams ninja games.
Yeah, and aired ninja movies. And was a ninja addict and changed his avatar to a ninja.
This is like transparently the word ninja offensive.
Is so many times stated in this one paragraph. We're building up to like all of that culminates in such a fucking weird, great sentence. So it's, let me just recapture some of the rhythm.
Yeah, cool.
He'd always been our Sega scholar. Recently, he is well-known ninja nut.
Yeah.
He changed his avatar to a ninja addict, live streamed himself playing ninja games, aired ninja movies. So this riddle was a bullseye in his Gunter knowledge sweet spot.
Fucking hell.
The Gunter knowledge sweet spot.
Oh,
sounds like Klein's word for the clitoris.
Yeah, it really does. Gunter knowledge sweet spot. Fucking
Sega Ninja.
Hell.
This is great as well because I guess one of the things that you want to do, it can be hard. It's something I really admired about Endgame actually. When I finally got around to watching all of the Marvel films, was how decent it does with the basically impossible task of giving each character in its like 400 character roster some screen time, some kind of plot, a little beginning, middle, and end for each of them. And I think what Klein is doing here is we've just had a huge amount of ninja knowledge re Shoto.
Yeah.
And of course, Wade's got the opportunity to say, oh, I knew all about this person. I just didn't think of them at the time. This is Klein's way of sharing the spotlight. I too am a ninja nut. Well, yeah, he must have realized, oh, fuck, I haven't given H her time in the sun vis-a-vis ninjas. So it's like the only way that Klein can think of...
lesbian nut.
Yeah. The only way Klein can think of to add characterization is to give that person also the knowledge that they didn't have one page earlier. But be like, Sega Ninja, H repeated as her eyes slowly lit up with recognition. Oh shit, I remember this game now. I was addicted to it. I was a well-known Sega Ninja nut. You play this badass princess named Karumi who has to take back her castle from the punks who usurped it, which is big like fellow kids syntax as well.
You were addicted, says Wade. It was my favorite game and is.
My aunt was crushed by it. They just talk now about this Sega Ninja game endlessly. They talk about how its sales. It gets rebranded again as just The Ninja. He pulls up like a hologram of it to just look at the fucking arcade machine. And the point they're landing on is it's obvious now that the puzzle is all to do with this. H is so excited that she says, "Oh, yo, I said, God damn, Shoto." In fact, H suddenly began to sing that line as she hunched over and began to dance sideways towards him. Shoto moved toward her in the same fashion, and they launched into an elaborate 5-part high five ritual, that's pretty cool, isn't it? And you may remember they're called the high five, although there are 3 of them now.
4?
4 of them, yes, you're right.
Yeah.
R.I.P., whatever the other one's name was. They realize now that there is a planet near the center of the Sega quadrant, which we'll just have to park, called Phoenix Rai. And that's where there is a popular shrine to Rieko Kodama's life and work. There's all of the video games, Vidya, as you like to call them, and they've got to go there and play. I selected H and Shoto's avatars on my HUD and prepared to teleport all three of us to the planet Phoenix Ryan, Sector 8. But of course, I couldn't take us anywhere. Can you think why?
He doesn't have the robes of goddamn
Anorak had taken my teleportation powers away, along with my other super user abilities.
No!
When he stole the robes of Anorak from my inventory.
So he's going to have to spend actual money on travelling. Wait, hang on. Yeah. But surely, do you think they each got... Because last time, everyone got like $5,000 deposited into their accounts.
Do you think they
got it as well?
Yeah, they don't need it because fortunately, this is like... one of the things I've covered in my songwriting degree is there is this thing called the problem solution song map where people are like, my boyfriend's gonna leave me if I don't dye my hair, and then in the course you'll be like, so I dyed my hair and I dyed it green. So it's like, there's the problem. Here the problem is, oh fuck,
we can't go there.
The super user abilities. And the solution is hey Faisal, can you hook me up with one of those admin rings you gave to everyone during our co-owners meeting? Faisal smiled and just had one.
Oh, that's good. Yeah.
And now they can teleport everywhere, as if none of that had any consequence whatsoever, which is really cool. It's really good when it's a problem solver.
Earlier on, we had that dynamic where the problem was Artemis was dead, and the solution was no, she wasn't.
She's alive. Fuck, that was a great one. I love that. Maybe he's read this Song Maps book.
Yeah,
and fair play to him.
I remember how in the previous chapter there was the problem of the AI was going to be deleted, and then the solution was he didn't.
Not so fast.
He didn't say the magic word.
They go to the planet and it's too dull to describe. It's 8-bit graphics.
Does Ernest say that?
He basically does. He just says like, the area where we arrived was modeled after this video game, but as we began to traverse, we found ourselves running through a different video game. Like that's basically it. They go through the Green Hill Zone from the original Sonic the Hedgehog. So they're just like, he's just fucking. He's like that hedonism bot from Futurama, just throwing the.
I think they were running through this game.
Like, he's just may as well be doing that thing that we talked about, of just being like sitting there and being like, Test Chamber 6 from Portal 1, and people are like, we walked through Test Chamber 6. Remember the button, remember the bots.
Fuck you, Chamber 2 stands, fuck you.
Someone gets kicked to death for standing Chamber 2 incorrectly. I mean, it's this much of a page is how much he bothers. A man who previously labors over, and there was this pixel, and over there was this special hidden pixel that only big boys could see. Like now he's just, they fucking arrived on the game planet. Yeah. What do you want from me? I'm spent. I'm so rich now. I just
do not care.
Oh dear.
Do you think you don't think maybe Klein was running out of references?
Stop. I don't even dare to imagine.
Sorry, that was
God
foolish.
Create a reference so powerful that he himself can't make it?
He himself never saw the
movie. Look, they're there on the planet. They arrive at the equator for no clear reason. There's a line of portals, all of them themed around video games that this person had something to do with.
Yeah.
Black Onyx, Championship Boxing.
Sure.
Yeah.
Is there the Sega Ninja?
Have I told you about Sega Ninja?
Is there a Sega Ninja portal?
The year was 1985.
Boys, they weren't as progressive.
They had a certain snake in their boot called masculinity. They approach the Ninja Princess portal, and he notices this ringing in his ears, which begins to increase steadily in volume. And he's like, "The fuck is that?" And he's like, H, Shoto, what's going on? And they're like, can't hear it. That's weird. The icon, he pulls up his HUD, which is what I do whenever there's a sign of trouble. I'm straight to the HUD.
Yeah.
I'm pretty
Is that on a view screen?
That's a great question. Because is it a view screen if it's like your eyes? Are our eyes? They say the eyes are the view screen to the soul. So in that sense, I suppose, yeah. He pulls it up and he's like, oh wait, the icon for the first shard in his inventory is pulsing in time with this weird that he can hear.
Okay.
And it's as if the shard were calling out to me, just like, and you're probably already thinking it, that green Kryptonian crystal that called to young Kal-El in Superman the movie.
Oh no, not like a siren. That would have been a better.
This is that would have been good actually. In fact, and this is really nice, like meta commentary on the book. In fact, I was pretty sure Halliday had lifted the sound effect I was hearing directly from that film, which is exactly what Ernest is doing.
Yeah,
he just lifted.
It sounded
the
a bit like this,
of it.
and in fact, it was, this.
But it's almost like he's having a go. It's like, Halliday just fucking copy and pasted it, whereas I referenced it.
I'm referencing it in a completely different manner.
The Shard wants you to know that it's got a new riddle now for some reason, and it's this. Niniku and Zaemon aren't alone on her roster. Once you reclaim her castle, you must face her imposter. They're the two main bad guys in Ninja Princess, H said, in what I can only hear as a kind of sigh of just like boredom at this point.
Yeah.
Like, we're going too deep.
Is the Shard here or not? Like,
yeah. Karumi has to defeat both of them to win the game and, quote, reclaim her castle. Then face her imposter, I recited. Wade just really adding a bit that everyone knew.
Sorry,
already.
guys. Just, I don't want you to be incomplete.
That must be Kazamaru, the male ninja they replaced her with in the Master System port. Guess I'll have to fight him too. I cracked my knuckles. Couldn't be too difficult, right? He's getting his gumption back, his mojo.
I think he's forgotten again that the robes of Anorak are not there, and he's going to get his ass kicked by a princess.
I don't know when they agreed, because I skimmed over the same bit in retelling this as when I read it. I don't know when they agreed that Wade was going to be the one. I guess he's the only one that can pick up the shards.
Maybe.
But I don't know why there has to be just one.
We don't know that is, because we thought that was the case. It turns out Og can pick them up as well.
Yeah,
so that's because there's no reason to assume that, say, Art Through Mist couldn't.
Yeah, I was reminded in this chapter that the particular technical reason we were right, it's because he's the heir to some of Halliday's property, but specifically it was his pinball machine collection. So that is how the word heir has been kind of bastardized here. Basically, Wade is going in. The rest of them are going to be watching on his POV feed, so they can give him a progress. And this is where, for the gunheads out there, this is a real moment of I pronounce you the Fellowship of the Ring. This is exciting because this is what it used to be all about. This is the core of the franchise. Wade's going in to do a mission that he's going to easily ace thanks to his preternatural ability to be exactly as good as he needs to be at things that no one else is.
Yeah.
And the others are just going to stand there kind of quipping. They're going to be quipping in his ear oh, watch out, Wade. Did I tell you about March 1985? And he'd be like, you told me that one before, Shoto. But it's exciting, and we love to see it. Shoto does something really cool here. He changes out of his formal ninja attire and instead puts on gold armor, strapping on his swords. And H and Wade change into their old Gunter attire too. So this properly is going back to the roots, the basics, the fundaments of the series.
If this were a fun movie about this happening in the Earl, then there'd be a fun joke where one of them would be a bit too fat, and it would just be a little bit. I'm getting
too old for this shit. But instead, there's a fun joke.
It's fine.
There's another fun joke. H throws up a mirror so that the three of them could admire ourselves. Look at those handsome devils, she said, before blasting the mirror to smithereens with a shot from her assault rifle.
Whoa!
That's wacky. Now let's do this. Okay, amigos, I said, accepting Shoto's audio call on my HUD. Here goes nothing. I bumped fists with both of them at once. Hello. Big fist Wade. I imagine it, the one fist for two of theirs. Then turned around, took a deep breath, and jumped into the Ninja Princess portal. End of chapter.
Whoa.
Thank fuck for that. Now, a lot has happened. What's the theme of this one? Because I haven't found it myself.
God, no. I'm trying to think. I suppose the theme here is problem solution. Everything that was wrong was fixed.
Is right.
Immediately. So that's fine. They
it's
didn't know
stakes, isn't it?
Yeah, they didn't know what the riddle was. Then they did.
Yeah.
They didn't know where they were.
And not only one of them did, but actually all of them.
It turned out they all knew, in
kind of domino effect.
Well, you wouldn't want there to be a kind of hierarchy of knowledge, would you?
Unless, with the crucial exception, unless Wade was kind of on top of that.
Yeah. And he was just a bit... he was busy thinking about all those dead bodies that he definitely cared about.
Corpses that he made. Yeah. It's been a wild ride for sure. And let me tell you, well, let's see if we have advanced from 43%, because if not, I must be in some kind of personal purgatory that's been devised to torture me alone. 46%. Okay. I mean, that doesn't feel like enough progress.
Really not very much at all.
And yet this is where we find ourselves. We'll be back in 2 weeks from today with another Big Bad Books. But in the meantime, there's a bunch of other stuff going on, and I'd love to hand over to Delkin to tell you all about it.
So, as we mentioned earlier, every other Sunday we do another show called That's a Shame, the podcast. But you don't have to say the podcast afterwards. We kind of all know that. That's like
we call it That's a Shame with Nick Alex as the phone of our show.
We do not call it that. That is a different podcast. That guy stole our brand, and we will fight him for it in court. So you can listen to that, and you can find our Twitter account at Shame City Gang, where we kind of like it's sort of like the hub for all of this stuff.
Yeah, it's a huge place.
Another hub that you might like to go through. No, that's hub, not HUD.
Very we haven't different. Got HUD yet.
Not yet. But we'll get when we got it, you better believe it will be shame.city/HUD. You better believe that it will be. You could, in the meantime, instead go to shame.city/Discord, which is a lovely little community of friendly people, kind of...
Robots.
There's robots in there. There's sort of goblins and groblins in there as well. Like, there's all sorts going on. I won't tell you who they are. You get to figure that out.
That's part of the fun of it. Yeah, find out.
We have been streaming fairly for us regularly, Monday to Thursdays, about 9 p.m. till about 11 p.m. There's all sorts going on. There's Hollow Knights, there's puzzles, there's Risks of Rain, there's Pokemons, there's all sorts happening over there. So head over to shame.city/Twitch. That wasn't there. But if you would like to know more about How Do You Like Them Uncles, then you could throw a little bit of coinage our way. 5 of them, gold, each month will get you over at patreon.com/shamecity an extra episode every week. And that one is... It's even better than this stuff. And this stuff, let me tell you,
crazy.
Can't believe we're giving it away for free.
It's madness. It's absolutely madness. And yeah, that's very appreciated. If that's, beyond the pale for whatever reason, then do consider just chucking us a review on iTunes. 5 stars helps us out, ego-wise, if not in any practical terms. Although I'm assured that there is some tangible benefit to it as well.
And that would be at shame.city/book review for this show, or shame.city/reviews for That's a Shame.
Until next time, if you join us in a week on the TAS feed, that would be delightful, won't it? Lovely to see you, we'll say, and we'll pinch your little rosy cheeks so hard that the little blood vessels will burst beneath our thumb. If not, 2 weeks, we'll be back with more of Wade's powerful, Chad-like digital antics. And until then, I've been Isaac, you've been...
Me, I've been Declan.
Oni's up!
Love them bats.